Hi folks. This week we are going to build on the work we've done on phase tree diagrams. Last time around, we defined some terms and looked at some simple examples. Now we are going to turn our attention to what the phase tree diagram can tell us about the sentence. Generally speaking, one of the primary benefits of the phase tree diagram is that it helps to disambiguate how the elements of complex English sentences work. Or, put more simply, it clarifies how the parts of a sentence relate to each other. One of the more powerful observations is that all sentences must include both a noun phrase and a verb phrase. In a phrase tree diagram, we label sentences with S, noun phrases with NP, and verb phrases with VP. In the last two examples, the P signals a phrase. So the diagram for the general English sentence looks like this. A sentence is composed of a noun phrase and a verb phrase. Of course, English sentences can be much more complicated, but they all contain at least one noun phrase and verb phrase. Let's start our work with a pretty simple sentence. How about this one? The old dog in the yard barked loudly. A phrase tree diagram of the sentence looks like this. A sentence composed of a noun phrase and a verb phrase. By convention, we put the noun phrase on the left and the verb phrase on the right. The noun phrase is composed of a determiner, an adjective phrase, a noun, and a prepositional phrase. And these, in turn, map onto the words, the old dog in the yard. In the other part of the sentence, the verb phrase, in this case, is made up of a verb and an adverb phrase. The verb is barked, and the adverb is loudly. Mapped out completely, the sentence looks like this. Okay, simple enough, but how do we know what sort of phrase we have? All we have to do is look at the key word in the phrase. We call that word the head word. So, the head word of a noun phrase is always a noun. The head word of a verb phrase is a verb. The head word of a prepositional phrase is a preposition, and so on. Whatever else happens, the phrase will contain the head word, and it may contain only the head word. But what about that prepositional phrase, in the yard? In is a preposition, so that makes sense. But why are those other words there? They are there because phrases can have multiple parts, and to make things a little more tricky, one phrase can have another embedded in it. So, for instance, you can have a noun phrase with an embedded prepositional phrase that has another noun phrase embedded in it. And amazingly, that sort of embedding is pretty common. Here's an example. The man in the red car. Altogether, it is a noun phrase, and man is our head word. But in that noun phrase, we have an embedded prepositional phrase, in the red car. And in that prepositional phrase, we have another noun phrase, the red car. Fortunately, while the embedding can be very deep, technically you could keep tacking phrases on as long as you like, the constituents of each type of phrase are relatively simple. Let's look at some of the more common. A noun phrase can contain a determiner, an adjective phrase, a noun, and a prepositional phrase. Written out, it would look like this. NP, arrow, parentheses, DET, close parentheses, parentheses, ADJP, close parentheses, N, parentheses, PP, close parentheses. The parentheses go around anything that can be included but doesn't have to be. A verb phrase is even simpler. It can include an auxiliary verb, the verb, a noun phrase, and an adverb phrase. Written out, it would be VP, arrow, parentheses, AUX, close parentheses, V, parentheses, NP, close parentheses, parentheses, ADVP, close parentheses. Again, with parentheses around AUX, NP, and ADVP because they are not required. But the verb, the V, is. In some systems, there's also a marker for the verb's tense, but we will let that go. Adjectival phrases can contain a verb, an adjective, and a prepositional phrase. Written out, it would be ADJP, arrow, parentheses, ADVP, close parentheses, ADJ, parentheses, PP, close parentheses. Prepositional phrases can contain a preposition and a noun phrase. Written out with abbreviations, we'd see PP, arrow, P, parentheses, NP, close parentheses. Adverbial phrases are even simpler. They include any number of adverbs, so it would be written out ADVP, arrow, parentheses, ADVP, close parentheses, ADVP. Of course, it is possible to have more than one type of each phrase in a sentence, and while there are some other phrase types and some slightly complex transformations that can happen, these 4 patterns are enough to map out most simple sentences. If you come up against a sentence that you can't map out, don't worry. Recognizing that you don't have the tools you need reveals that you already understand something important about how the sentence works. Thanks for listening to this discussion of phrase tree diagrams, and let me know if you have any questions. Cheers.